Just testing if you guys can hear me in the room.
We
Oh,
can.
wonderful. Okay, great. I can hear you now as well. Thank you, Councillor Mealy. Okay, so we will call to order our committee of the whole meeting, and just noting that because I am joining electronically tonight, I'm not able to chair. And our acting mayor for the month is Councillor Patola, who's away today, so council will have to choose a chair for the evening. Are there any members of council who would like to chair this evening from the room? Wonderful. Councillor Haggard, could somebody in the room make a motion for Councillor Haggard to chair for the evening? Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to make that motion.
Thank you,
Second,
Councillor.
Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Mealy. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now I will pass this over to Councillor Haggard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Minions. I appreciate you being here by Zoom anyway, and we're happy to have you here, even if you're not here in person. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to acknowledge and recognize that we work, live, and play in the city of Port Alberni, which is situated on the unceded territories of the Shuswap and Huipachesset First Nations. Is there any late items identified by committee members? Seeing none, is there any late items identified by the corporate officer?
No late items.
Thank you. And just a notice that this video is being recorded and live streamed on the city's website and the YouTube. Can I get a motion that the agenda be approved as circulated? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Director Councillor Dave. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Sorry, I'm used to chairing the ACRD meetings. Next is the adoption of minutes. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I get a motion that the minutes of the meeting held at 6 p.m. on January 29th, 2024 be approved as presented? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is public input period. This is an opportunity for the public to address the committee. A maximum of 6 speakers for no more than 5 minutes each will be accommodated. For those participating electronically, please use the raise your hand feature and you will be called upon to speak in the order of which it appears. Would any member of the public like to come forward? Come ahead. We ask that you please state your name.
That's right. I just have actually a few questions. And I was looking at your corporate strategic plan here. I was just wondering, what is the corporate all about? Is like, why would you say corporate strategic plan? Is the city of Port Alberni in a corporation?
Do you have an answer for that, Donna? The CEO?
Sure. The city is incorporated, so it's if you go back in legislation in time, you'll see there is a specific date that all municipalities incorporate with the province.
Okay, 1992, I think that was. All right. And the other question I have is the complete community part that you're talking about in your program here. What exactly is complete community, and is that the same thing as the 15-minute city or the smart city? And
No,
if
it is not.
Can you tell me the difference then, please?
CEO, can you respond?
Through the chair, a complete community is whatever the community wants to be. So it's going out and finding out that. I know that we're undergoing the OCP process right now. So all residents will have their say on the future direction of the city. And also the city will be undergoing many master plans as sort of the next level of planning to sort of shape and form what the community looks like, feels like, etc. And again, being an agent of the province, we have to follow the legislation from the province that they're putting down. A 15-minute city, there's lots of different versions of a 15-minute city around the world. A lot of people would say that it's your amenities are within 15 minutes of your house. Now, some places say that a 15-minute city is within 15 minutes of driving. Some would say it's walking. Some would say it's biking. And there's lots of different ways that that's explained. So really a 15-minute city is, a lot of accessibility committees talk about a 15-minute city. A lot of bigger cities do. That when they start to densify, they actually create smaller nodes in a community so people can actually access services more readily. So there's lots of different versions out there and there's lots of controversy about them. But for our corporate strategic plan, I believe it means a complete community. We want to make sure we're serving all demographics equally and all people, all residents in the city.
Thank you, CEO.
Okay, thank
Any-
you. And also, on your website, you were given a $150,000 grant for GIS mapping of the city of Port Alberni. And it doesn't say where you got that $150,000. And I was just wondering where, who actually gave us the grant.
CEO?
Yeah, through the chair, I can't remember exactly what ministry that was that gave us 150. And it's not for mapping of the full city, it's for our GIS process. So the community is a little bit behind in our GIS, and we do have to come up to speed on the GIS. But not, I can't remember off the top of my head on which ministry gave us that. It was from the province, though.
Okay, so that seems like a lot of money for just for setting up the geographic system, mapping system. But anyways, okay, well, perhaps you could get me that information at one point, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come up?
Excuse me, before we go on, a member of the public on TV land there says there's no audio. I don't know. So maybe we could put a 5-minute break till we fix it. They still don't have audio.
Okay, we'll just take a short break due to technical difficulties. Okay, I think our problem is fixed now, so could I have everybody be quiet? Thank you. We were at public input period before we had technical difficulties. Does anybody else want to come up and speak before we move on? Come on up, Wendy. Happy to have you here tonight. Yeah, just turn on the button there, Wendy.
Okay, and I'm pretty excited to be here. My name's Wendy Kerr, live on 6th Avenue, been here for 60 plus years. Anyways, and I thought, well, as long as I've come here, I hate to waste a good public comment period. 3rd Avenue is deplorable. We want people to come and have this experience and drive down to the Harbor Quay. Unfortunately, we have to drive through Skid Row, bad roads, potholes, bad lighting. It just 3rd and 4th Avenue are disgusting, and the state of the roads in Port Alberni these days are sad. And so I wonder what's the plan for our ongoing road repairs. And I like to walk trails, but I have this bad habit about liking to drive my car. And there's just some places, the stoplight actually at River Road where oh Jesus, I can't even tell you where I am. There's a big manhole. Anyways, it's on River Road, Victoria Quay, and there's a big manhole. Every time you go around it, you almost have to, you have to. Anyways, it is not good condition. Lots of our roads are in not good condition. I'd like to know, is there any plans for cleaning up 3rd Avenue? I actually noticed I was walking down at the Harbor Key and it turns out they have garbage can like every 25 feet, but you look down 3rd and 4th Avenue and there's no garbage cans. 4th Avenue has no lights. And I'll tell you, when you're driving down 3rd, it is dark and scary here. We need to give some attention to 3rd Avenue, to better lighting, possibly traffic control at high congestion areas, maybe liquor stores a popular place. But we need to do something in that area because there's going to be accidents there and it's going to come real soon. And every time I drive that road when it's dark and it's raining, I warn everyone, you got to watch this because we're going to lose more people. And thank you very much for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you, Wendy. I don't know if you were at the last meeting, but we are looking at a lot of our intersections for better lighting. And I remember there used to be lots of garbage cans on 3rd Avenue, so I don't know what's happened to them if you say they're gone. There used to be quite a few up there. Is Jeff back there? With Cindy saying there's still no audio.
Test.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Would anybody else like to come up and speak? Come on up. Well, as I said, there used to be lots of garbage cans up there, so I'm not sure what's happened to them. If they've disappeared recently, I don't know where they are, but we'll look into it for you. Is that an answer that? What's more information did you want? Come on up. Make sure you turn on the speaker and state your name, please.
Hi, my name's Rod Cameron. I've been here now 4 years. I was recently in Victoria, and I came here in 1980 and stayed till 1986. Retired commercial fisherman, and everyone knows in 1980 there was no work, so away we go. Here I am back again, working on 5 years. In that time, when I first lived here in 1980, we had Woodward's going. 3rd Avenue was just the greatest place. Had a pool hall, you know, the Chinese restaurant, all the rest of it. Everything was great. Now I come back and it looks like Gastown in the 70s. It's disgusting. What plans?
I love Gastown.
Yeah, now.
Denise.
Yeah, I used to love it too. But you take a look at it now, it's not the same. Same with East Hastings, not the same. I grew up there. I know that. Now I'm looking at this Port Alberni from what it was to what it is. And it's not very nice. We've got homeless people. We've got people shooting up on 3rd Avenue. We've got stores that are closed down, demolished, wrecked, derelict. And we're supposed to accept this. Meanwhile, there's great plans for the other end of town. There's great plans for the Harbor Key, but I've never, ever heard anything about 3rd Avenue from the Barclay up this way. It's disgusting, and I was wondering what this council is prepared to do to look into cleaning that up. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Unfortunately, if people are doing drugs in the street, it is now illegal. There's nothing that we can do. If you're not happy, you need to contact the province. There was an proposal to go through to stop people from doing drugs in like public parks and business doorways, but that's been postponed until March 31st. So what I would do if you're concerned about that, I would contact your local MLA and say that you don't approve of people being able to do drugs in public spaces. As far as economic development, we're trying as hard as we can to bring new industry to Port Alberni, and there is new businesses coming in all the time. That's ongoing issue since 40 years ago. That's yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Anybody else want to come up? Please turn on the speaker and state your name, please.
Hi, my name's Sue Thomas. I'm actually living in the ACRD right now, but I proposed this to the ACRD and they seem to push it back to you guys. My question was about the siren, the tsunami siren, and how it is utilized and who pushes the button and all that stuff. So my ask to the ACRD was, do you think that we could utilize the siren for more things like a fire, a wildfire? And they said, no, it can't. And my question is, why not? It seems like we have an incomplete emergency plan in this valley, and I think that we need to think outside the box about what's coming our way. So I would suggest that maybe we need to think about public education and that siren could be used for more things. Also, while I'm at it, we need an overhead sign going east to tell us that the road is open or closed, or that the detour is open or closed. We're coming in for some weird times in this valley, and we need to think about that. That's it.
I
Thank
thought
you.
there was a sign, was there not?
Not digital.
Not, okay. As far as the tsunami siren, and I might be wrong, but I'm assuming that if you can't have one siren for a lot of different things because people won't know what that siren means then. Do you have any comments on that, CEO?
Through the chair, I know we're talking with the ACRD about upgrading some of the sirens over time here. And we could look and see if there is other options. So I can continue to work with the ACRD. The ACRD does run our emergency management, but we are in conversations all the time. So I can always bring forward and see if there's other options for that.
Great, thank you very much. We have room for one more speaker. Does anybody want to come up? Joseph, come on up. Joseph had his hand raised first.
Good evening, everyone, and hello to Mayor and Council. My name is Joseph Laskosic. I live here in Port Alberni, and just a couple things, just for clarification. For one thing, this is public input. We have a question period. So is there questions? I know we've been doing that tonight, but is that kind of?
You know what? It started that way, so I just carried on.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, I was just curious because I know in the past it was limited to comments only and not real dialogue or questions. So as much as I would love to see it open up to that, because I think the more public input, the better, of course, not just a question period. But I know there's a time frame involved. So just like to say thank you to Mayor and Council for the job you guys do. That's not an easy job. And when I'm here, I get to see how you guys operate together, make decisions. And when I'm not, I watch online, and I'm just kind of thankful that we have people that make a great effort. Don't always agree with what you do, of course not. That's always going to be the case, but I just want to say thank you to everybody. And that includes the staff that try to do a good job for our city and for our community. I brought up a number of you were at the town hall meeting, or the transition town meeting at CHARS about a week and a half ago, I believe it was. And I brought up a question, and it's just going to be a comment at the time. How to protect or maintain the OCP once we've all gone through that, because it often gets deviated or gets greatly altered. Same with development plans that get changed. Initially, it's proposed a certain way and changes are made. I know that's a normal process. But so how do you protect and maintain OCP and developmental plans from deviating? And quite often that goes according to mayor and council that are sitting at that time those decisions are made. And again, we don't always agree, but it is a process. And the comment was made or answered there that evening by somebody who was on council at one time. And I agreed with him wholeheartedly, thumbs up. And I went, but how do we do that? And his point was, here's what you do to make sure that you help keep things accountable and have your say. He said, get involved. That was his comment, get involved. And so I think my comment is how to, and I know there's efforts to be made to engage the public to be out there communicating and doing a better job. And thank you for doing all of that. And I know there's a ways to go. So thank you for people that come out and do just that. So it's just a comment about how we do that, just get involved. These next two quick comments, I think I have time, was brought to me by a community member that said, would you mind mentioning this? And I could mention his name. I didn't ask him for it at the time. Just some things that I hadn't noticed. And he said, since you go to meetings, one of them is regarding, and this is not my thoughts, these are what he's asked. He has worked in the city, been in the city for a long time, has worked around water pipes and is aware, sorry, I sound kind of loud, that a lot of our pipes across Canada are made of asbestos and concrete. And there was a report on W5 that did an investigation into that and looking into asbestos that's in the water system because of these pipes. And municipalities and cities that are asking for funding to change those and make people aware that there is a possibility of contamination in the pipes because of what they're made from. That might be a good thing for to watch on W5 and just get a perspective on that and say, wow, is that going on? Is it something we need to be concerned about as a community and a city? And maybe do testing. And part of that was they said do testing for it to see what the levels are in there, just for safe drinking water. That was a comment he made. The other comment he asked me, he said, you know, he's lived here a long time. The highways of concern to him. Everybody is because of the recent closures and stuff. And his thoughts were build it to Courtney. And that I know that's being looked at. There's lots of possibilities, but these are the reasons he said it would promote tourism. Apparently it's a very beautiful drive. I've only been down that road once, the back road. And he also said something to the effect that maybe at the same time we could tap into this is a pie in the sky, maybe, I don't know, but Great Central as our water supply. I know some people say our water supply is pretty good. China Creek, I think in Bainbridge, is it? And even your city says they like China Creek, but they don't like when they switch to Bainbridge. It's not quite the quality of water they would like to see. Anyhow, I think they're doing a good job of our water supply. That was his thoughts. Open up the highway, they put a new pipeline, they could supply Cherry Creek and Beaver Creek, and everybody could have a good source of water. So just a comment from one of the community members, and that's it.
Sure, my father-in-law is up in heaven cheering you on right now. CEO, do you have any comments on the water pipes? I thought that was very interesting. Do you know what our water pipes are and how they're doing?
Sure. Thank you for the question. We do test our water mains, and we don't use AC pipes when we're replacing pipes. It really depends on the type of water that is in the pipes, whether or not it makes the AC soft and pulls, and that's what W5 was talking about. So I am familiar with that report, and I don't believe our water has the type that leaches the pipe out. But we do test and we on-go test. It's part of the BCWWA and our standards that we uphold to. So I don't believe, besides AC not being used and it's hard to work around, we don't currently reinstall any AC pipes.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, because I'm so nice, I'll let you come up.
Thank you. I wasn't going to come up, but one of the previous speakers mentioned the electronic lights going up to the highway, and I'm thinking that's actually not a bad idea. We should be checking into the feasibility of that. And put the pressure on the provincial government to fund the money so they can put something like that up on their main highway going out of town until they get their butts together and resolve the problem of a second route out of Port Alberni. So I thought that was an interesting comment to make. Thank
My quickest way to check is go to Facebook and check the hump. Because I find the ministry news is very slow.
Well, we have to speed them up, and if we don't say anything, that's not going to
We've
happen.
said lots and lots. Yeah, Cindy?
Just to address two comments, because you asked that question and Neil has asked the same question. I was at the same meeting you were at where those two questions came out of. And the mayor and with the regional district, we have a transportation advisory committee that has been looking at routes, and I sit on that committee representing the city. And your question's very valid to me, because actually when I came back Monday night, I looked at coming through that particular area, Highway 4, and the barriers that come down to close the road is so close. And in the meantime, there's probably 100 cars lined up and they wouldn't know unless they're stopped, right? So it's something when that there's another meeting coming. I have no idea when. Should be soon, and I will bring that forward to the ministry. So, and at the same meeting, I thought the same thing. So thank you for bringing that forward, and Neil.
Thank you, Councillor Solda. Okay, so we'll go into delegations. First on the agenda is Broom Busters Evasive Plant Society. Come on up, please.
So I'm waiting for the PowerPoint, and there it is. Can you make it full screen? Yeah, there we go. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak today as a delegation, mayor and councillors. I'm Joanne Sales. I'm the executive director of Broom Busters, and we have the two area organizers here in the audience. Okay. No, it's up. Yeah. Okay. We want to thank Port Alberni for helping to pass the AVICC and UBCM resolution to control Scotch broom. Okay, so the resolution passed in both conventions. Now, what do we do and why? I just wanted to read the last two paragraphs again of the resolution. So therefore be it resolved that AVICC and UBCM work with the province to establish and implement actionable steps to control the aggressive spread of Scotch broom. Further be it resolved that local governments are encouraged to use bylaws and policies to control and manage Scotch broom near and within urban boundaries. So why is it important? Well, climate change has changed us, and Port Alberni certainly knows that. It has changed everything. I could read this about how climate change is going to give us longer periods of drought and hotter temperatures, but I actually prefer to read it from the perspective of the fire chief in Powell River, Terry Peters. He's now retired. But Scotch broom poses a significant fire hazard in British Columbia due to its highly flammable nature, rapid growth, and fire adaptive traits. The plant's volatile oils make it an easy ignition source, especially during the summer months when the plant dries out. Its ability to spread quickly and form dense stands increases the fuel load, impeding the fire management efforts, causing further spread into the natural forest, elevating the risk of wildfires. These two pictures here are from the last time that El Nino was impacting us, around 2015 and 2016. Those plants are actually alive. They're just become very dry during the very hot summers. So the combination of dry branches and high oil content means Scotch broom is dangerous. Another problem with it is that it's a top offender of biodiversity. Okay, so according to a 2021 assessment study for the Invasive Species Council of BC, we're told that Scotch broom is the invasive species causing the greatest harm to species at risk in BC. So in this chart, you can see 20 of the most impactful invasive species, plants and animals that are causing harm to our native species. At the very top of the list, the long bar is Scotch broom. Okay, so it's having a very serious impact on biodiversity. And if you look at the photos on the right, you can see, you know, how can the native plants of British Columbia compete with the kind of density and aggressive nature of Scotch broom. One of our serious problems is that broom covers the transmission lines. This greatly increases the danger that fire could spread across the island. I mean, if you think about a fire that started somewhere, it'd be very easily moving to other communities and on down the island. Another serious problem is that it spreads seeds across the island. If you're driving down Highway 4 or if you're up Highway 19 and you say, wow, there's a lot of broom right here, you can be sure that somewhere very close by, there's a place where the transmission lines cross the highway, and that's where the seeds come from. Another serious problem in many communities is that the hydro lines were actually built as escape routes. And when the Scotch broom is as tall as it is in the middle photos, it's not an escape route anymore. So broom spreads densely and rapidly and grows huge quickly. So all of these photos are from the mid-Vancouver Island. So it can grow up to 10 feet tall. And it's not a tree, so it grows faster than trees and smothers any trees. Has negative economic impact on forestry, farming, food security, recreation, and tourism. The picture on the left, the Scotch broom moves from transmission lines and logging roads into forests, inhibiting forest regrowth. So you see there, the broom is dense on the power lines, and then you can see it has spread into the small trees, and it grows faster than the trees and takes the nutrients, water, sunlight. Broom also takes over farmland and trails and is actually toxic to grazing animals. The picture to the right, the top, that's actually a picture from Sprout Lake. Whenever gravel is brought in, the logging roads, whatever, the broom seeds are going to come in. So it's not exactly the wonderful stroll through around the park that people want. You know, it's actually lined with Scotch broom. And the other two photos are actual farms. Now, broom seeds can survive in the soil from 30 to 80 years. So if you would try to farm those fields again, you would have a very, very hard time. So Port Alberni actually has been great. Since 2007, there was the first broom busters that cut the broom on next to the hospital. The person who was leading that then moved away, and there were some years when it didn't happen, but it's happening again. So here's some cuts that were happening on Hospital Hill, Roger Creek, the Visitor Center. These pictures are they barely scrape the surface of the number of cuts that have been done. Want to, give credit to the Alberni Deep Space Port volunteers who cut these huge piles of broom at the SPCA. I just love those pictures too much. I just needed to share them. Yeah. Here's more pictures along Stamp Road, behind or next to Staples. Familiar places to you all. So what can we do? So there's a lot of communities that have never done anything about Scotch broom. It's new on the mainland, so they really don't know how to start. So as we talk to different municipalities, they say, well, what could this community do as an example to the other municipalities that are new? So our thought was, well, how about if we ask council to co-sponsor a citywide broom busting event? It's been 17 years since Port Alberni first had a cut, so it seems like it's time for some kind of celebration. But it would also be a wake-up call. It would educate the public. It'd be lots of fun. It would draw more volunteers, and we do need more volunteers. It could be very easy to organize and will demonstrate an option for other local governments. Last year, the city staff asked for Broombusters' help at Echo Center. And we want to help, but Broombusters needs more volunteers. And we thought if we have a publicized event, that might be exactly what is needed to bring in the volunteers that are needed. This event could take place on a Saturday morning, for 2 hours. It doesn't have to be a long event. I was driving around. I wanted to look at the Echo Center. I'm not sure that that's the best place. If it could possibly be at North Island College, there's more broom there. It's more open space. We do want to get to the Echo Center broom, but anyway, that can still be discussed. So at the 10-year anniversary of Parksville and Qualicum Beach, when they had been cutting broom for 10 years, the cities had an event. And it was a lot of fun, highly publicized. And a lot of the people, as soon as they cut broom, they go, "This is actually really fun." So that's what we're hoping possibly could be something that Port Alberni could demonstrate that, of something municipalities can do to generate interest and to get rid of Scotch broom. So this is some of the broom that is around the North Island College, and this could be cleared in the same day. So another real benefit of having council do this, besides the fact it'd be wonderful to have you all participate, would be that the publicity through the newspaper and any channels that the city has, the website and Facebook and things like that, would educate people about Scotch broom. So what happens then is people go home and they clear the broom off their own property, and they know when they're walking along a trail and they see a small amount of broom, they'll cut it down. So I think the main thing we need to do now in this area is education and participation. So we're just reaching out to council to say, you want to go cut some broom? So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from council? Council Solda?
Thank you. There's a certain days or certain months that they can only be cut because of the seeds. So I missed that?
Yes, yeah. So we want to cut before the seed pods form, but in the spring when the energy of the plant is moving up. So it's like mid-April to the end of May. Because this is an El Nino year, we expect that the seed pods are going to form. We stop cutting when the seed pods form because we don't want to spread. So we're thinking, definitely mid-April would be the beginning this year for cutting broom.
And how do people get hold of you if they are interested in helping and?
Yeah, well, we have the website is probably the best way, although our Facebook page sometimes rises and sometimes falls. But anyway, we will definitely have the Facebook operating. Yes, so email is the best, and the best way is through the website. Thank you for asking that. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, thanks so much for being here today and for the important work that you do in the community. I'd like to just go ahead and make a motion that the committee recommend to council that council direct staff to bring back a proposal for organizing an event in partnership with the Broom Busters for a broom busting day. Unless the committee could just go ahead and recommend that staff do that. I'm not sure if we would need to, if council needs to have that discussion, or if we can just request staff do that here and now.
We have to take that to council, correct? Yeah.
All right.
We have a motion and we have a seconder. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. Thanks for everything. Thanks for everything you've done in the past. Our city boundary is actually quite small, and there's a large area outside of it that's contained within the regional district on which we sit and have 2 representatives on that. Have you approached the regional district about this?
Yes, we work with the regional district as well. Um, you understand the differences between a regional district and a municipality much better than I do. But we actually do a lot of broom busting in the regional district. The way they work is they gave us a grant, and that helps us to pay for chipping and removal, which, you know, inside the municipalities, we are so grateful that the city itself removes the broom that we cut. So we'll definitely, I'm going to be talking to the ACRD next week, and, you know, it would be wonderful to have even more of a participation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we are part of the regional district. We have 2 seats on that. So I just wouldn't want us to see us duplicate the same thing. So yeah, I'd really encourage you to go to the regional district, and then maybe we can all do this together as one large community. I did have one second question, if I may, Chair. It's just you mentioned about hydro and how not much pressure had been put on them, and I'm wondering, has anything been done, or is there anything you would like us to do, maybe on your behalf, to that entity, maybe to start applying pressure in that way?
Yes, it definitely helps if different municipalities, regional districts, I think it has to be almost specific, you know, so like when I talk to Ladysmith and when I talk to Lanceville, you know, and they have hydro lines going right through their properties and they're suffering because of it, that I was going to suggest that the action they could take would be to actually ask BC Hydro to remove the broom that's going through their municipality. And I know that they do respond to pressure, you know, from farmers and from landowners. If they can demonstrate that they are going to be clearing the broom in their area, that BC Hydro will respond. And part of the resolution that was passed is that we would create fire breaks, substantial sized fire breaks, and that would be mostly along BC Hydro lines. And I think that's really important. So yes, please put pressure on them.
I'm also going to suggest the regional district has a Fire Smart program. So the person in charge of that when you're presenting is maybe you could ask if he could reach out to BC Hydro as well. Okay.
Yes.
Any
you.
final questions or comments before we vote on the motion? All in favor? None opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda is Alberni Valley Nature Club. Sandy McCure is going to come and present from information regarding an urban forestry strategy. Come on up, Sandy.
Hello, Council. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for agreeing to hear what I have to say. The Alberni Valley Nature Club is here to advocate for a urban forest strategy for Port Alberni. This is not a new concept. Most of the communities on central Vancouver Island have something of a similar name. These strategies are not just confined to large cities. Campbell River has one. Courtney has one. Qualicum Beach has a tree bylaw. So does Parksville. And of course, Nanaimo has one, and Duncan too. All we have is a tree bylaw for managing trees in boulevards in front of people's houses. That's it. There are a number of benefits having an urban forest strategy that encompasses the entire city. With increasing population density in the city, the forest areas will be increasingly used by people to reduce stress in their lives. There's an abundant science to support this. These areas will become increasingly important to people and to society. A significant portion of the city's population is unable to access the great outdoors that surround us beyond the city's boundaries. That being said, there is a large tract of land just inside the southeast border of the city. Almost all of it is owned by the city. And and it's zoned right now future residential. But it's also crisscrossed with walking trails, some of which are promoted on the city's website and some are unsanctioned paths. And I think that that ambiguity has to be cleared up. Trees provide shade. Relief from sun is very much appreciated in hot summer months. And those months won't get any cooler. We already have a hot climate in the summer. Trees help cool the climate in general. There are ways to track the amount of shade or forest cover within a city. It can be a tool for prioritizing tree planting. And of course, we can do our bit to sequester carbon, not only in forest areas around the city, but also in neighborhoods and parks and even on people's houses. This can be done by encouraging tree planting and having a tree cutting bylaw and through grants. It would not likely impact the city coffers too much, I don't think, if grants were sought and perhaps using students, summer grants and that sort of thing. Climate forecasters are predicting dry and drier summers into the future. Given the experience of many parts of the interior over the past number of years, a wildfire resiliency plan should also be included in the strategy. So within these forest lands and ravines and along creeks, there are conifers that are some of the oldest trees in the city. Being in these areas mean these trees will eventually develop into old trees. And so in a sense, by paying attention to this, we are preserving our heritage. And trees, remove pollutants, provide habitat for forest creatures, reduce energy in buildings, reduce stormwater damage, and even enhance property values. So to me, I think there's an immediate need for some kind of action. The Scott Kenny Trail, for instance, is losing a lot of its forests. All the trees are dying, all the deciduous trees, that is, and there are a lot of them. They are old, but there are hardly any trees underneath them. What's under these trees is a dense thicket of salmonberry and blackberry. So within 10 years, it will be unbearably hot down there in the summer. It may even threaten the salmon population, the young fry in the creeks. So a little foresight, that is a strategy, could have avoided this situation. So on the eve of the start of the official community plan public input process, please take this suggestion to heart. It's just the sort of thing that needs to be a part of the OCP. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming up. Any questions for Sandy? Councillor Solda.
I don't know if this is for Sandy, but I would love to ask our Scott Smith if that is being considered already in the OCP plan, or is it something that the public or the CAO, I don't know, through the chair, whoever, and if not, then Sandy could also present it at the OCP meetings and stuff like that. So it would be great.
Go ahead, Scott.
Through the chair to the committee, certainly policy development in our official community plan would certainly need and want to speak to things like this, and especially if it's coming from the community, that's important for us to hear and for council to consider. So policy guidance on that type of thing, including wildfire interface, wildfire, whether it's tree protection or and also part of our parks master plan, all those kinds of documents. This is important information for us to receive, and certainly the city consider policy development to support those kinds of initiatives.
Thank you, Scott. CEO?
Yeah, also just through the chair, the Parks Rec and Park Recreation and Culture Master Plan has just been put out for RFP, which is a request for proposals. And it includes in it urban forest management plan or strategy, whatever it ends up being called. There is that does form part of the Parks Recreation and Culture Master Plan. So that would be also another place. It takes it a step down from the OCP where Scott and his team will be looking at high level policy to direct those master plans. This one will be looking more at different areas of town and looking at more of in more detail. So that process is out for RFP now, hopefully closing within the near future. And then we'll be seeking public input as we put the plan together.
That's very good to hear. That's encouraging. I just, out of interest, I was really impressed with what Courtney has done. Check out Courtney's plan. Thank you very much, Council.
Great. Any final questions? Great. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, Sandy. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is the overview of the 2024 to 2028 financial plan process. And I'll turn it over to our our Director of Finance, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair Haggard. So for you tonight will be just a high-level review of what we're bringing forward as far as our financial plan for 2024, 2028. And this plan has been worked on over the last few months from staff and a lot of effort to bring it forward. And there's always a lot of requests for service funding allotments and whatnot based on what we feel we need to bring forward to council. But obviously, there's a lot of inflationary pressure at this time on a lot of our inputs into the service levels that we deliver throughout the city. So we do have a timeline that we have to meet. It's a statutory deadline of May 14th. We have to have the financial plan completed by that date in order to meet the community charter requirements. Today, this is, as I mentioned, just a summary and an overview of where we're sitting with our current increases. And it is just the first step. Council and the committee will have many opportunities to seek additional information, seek maybe some review of some items that you'd like more information on. And we will do this through February, March, and April, targeting a completion of the financial plan in early April to meet the deadlines for our tax rate bylaw and get everything in place so we can have our deadlines met. Every single meeting, we do have the opportunity for the public to engage, make comment and seek information. And we do that through a variety of different methods also. It could be through email directly to the city. We could do that at a meeting. So there's going to be various opportunities for the public to provide that input to the committee and the council. This is our roadmap that sets out that timeline. So as you can see, we're seeking that adoption of the financial plan at the February or the April. Sorry, my eyes aren't too good here. It's April. Anyways, I will confirm that later. I can't see it here. So April 8th. Yeah, April 8th. So yeah, I didn't want to misquote that. Thank you, Councillor Mealy. So with that, that's the target. But we have a couple months here to review that financial plan. The first reading will be at the regular council meeting on February 12th. So that's at 2 p.m. So developing the plan, it's really based in the 2023-2027 financial plan. A lot of what we see in the financial plan is already in there. It's the service levels that are currently being delivered to the community. As I mentioned, that inflationary pressure that we're seeing, there's external forces. We'll discuss the different impacts from contracts that we have current levels of service with those service providers, and we're just seeing the increases come forward as we saw with Vancouver Island Regional Library, as we mentioned with the RCMP contract, and then there's also you know, needs for resources for those service levels that we're continuing to meet, that are just regulatory or just demands on the resources that we have, that we need more resources. So, and of course, we look at the strategic priorities of council. That is something that also guides staff, and as far as we bring the budget forward and different items, that's within the financial plan. And then we're also maintaining, as I mentioned, that current level of service. And this strategic priority plan was updated for 2023, 2027 last year. So we've had some time to look at that, and this is guiding staff's and the CAO's direction to staff to bring the services forward. So just an overview, and what I'm going to do this time is walk through and take components of each section of the financial plan, and it lists the tax impact and the portion of the rate increase within that section of the financial plan. And hopefully that provides the details that support the committee's need to understand what we are bringing forward. And if there's additional information, by all means, we can seek that or include that. I've made some additional notes in case there's some questions, but like I said, we do have a period of time here to get the questions to council and the committee. When it comes to revenue, taxation is our single largest revenue source. It's about 67-68% of the overall revenue. Followed by that is our utility tax within the general fund. So this is taxes that we get from the utilities in the community. Payment of in lieu. We also have sales of service that often is associated with the utilities, but we are talking about in the general fund, just for Parks and Rec and the services that are within the general fund and not sewer and water. And those have been pretty steady over the past few years. They're pretty standard. There's nothing, you know, as taxes are the main source of revenue, we don't see a lot of revenue outside from different items, but we have been looking at our leases and ensuring that we are getting market value for our leases. We'll continue to look at our leases across the service delivery and make sure that we are reviewing that to get the fair market value for our leases moving forward. Now, moving into our general fund expenses, as I mentioned, this is the portion of the overall increase and the taxation dollar amount in the financial plan that's increasing. So legislative services, we're seeing a small increase, 0.09% or 24,000 for legislative services, and that's the council component of the financial plan. General administration, we do have a few resource additions in there that have bumped that up a little bit more. But other than that, we are seeing just the inflationary increase. And going back to legislative services, we did include the resolution for the electronic device. So that is a component of that increase. So we did have to recognize the motion that was made for that by council to increase the budget for the electronic devices. General administration, as I mentioned, there is some of the inflationary impacts from our just the inputs that we're seeing for all our agreements, and we do have a resource in there for council. So with finance, this is just the inflationary increases. We did have some ARO funding last year that was removed out of the budget or decreased a little bit. So it's sitting at 0.13 overall for the finance component. Bylaw enforcement, again, purely same level of service. It's an increase of the 0.12%. That's just over 31,000 for the bylaw enforcement. Within information systems and services, that's our technical side. We've seen inflationary pressures. A lot of what we conduct as far as business within the city is increased based on the server licensing. So we have become very technical as far as our supplies for services. So we are seeing that increase, and it's higher than the inflationary increases that we are seeing for a lot of the inputs such as servers and licensing, such as Microsoft Office and Adobe. We're seeing those increase at a higher rate. So we are moving the software licensing that is being incurred to each department. So it's reflective. If Parks and Rec has 15 employees that need all these licenses, those licenses are costed within that service line item now. So we've been changing that over the past few years to make sure that it reflects the true cost of providing that service. But we are still seeing increases in information systems. We've had new resources added, and those are at the full year now in IT. So that has been inflationary increases. So those are some of the items that are impacting information systems. Human resources, this is largely a increase based on the increases to contracts, but we do have a contract this year for human resources. That's a one-time, and it should go back down, but that's a 0.41% increase for human resources. Other common services, this is the consolidation of all our administration services. We do have like our TELUS contracts, hydro, in a few buildings that are these services are also seeing that inflationary pressure upwards too. So that's 0.59% that is increasing, or $162,831. Carbon offsets, it's a minor amount in the financial plan, but it's going up 0.02%. This is returning it to back where we had the level pre-2019. I think we were around 50,000 or so for carbon credits that we were purchasing under the CARET program, under the local government climate action plan. We do get a grant from the province that's about $150,000, and we contribute about $50,000 into those into the carbon reserve. So, and those projects that you'll see in the financial plan that are coming out of that are carbon reduction initiatives that we would be supporting through that grant funding and the contributions into this reserve. With our training and development conferences, we do have technical staff that need to meet requirements as far as the professional development. This is a 0.15. We did see this line item drop and then slowly return back to normal after COVID. Now that we have a full complement of staff and the ongoing requirement for their professional development, this has gone back up to where conferences are being attended and that those professional credits are being attained. And with the council travel and development, it's going up 0.02, or just almost $5,000, and that's just the anticipated. Keep on hearing something on the audience there. Sorry. Yeah. So going back to the council travel and development, 0.02 or for $4,900, and that's just the anticipation that we see for the increases due to the travel that we incur every year for council. So insurance cost is going up slightly, 0.04%, or just under $12,000. And then police services, this is I think one of the largest service areas that we see increases in the financial plan, and that's been brought forward to the committee and council as far as the report on RCMP, just advising council that we do see this is one of the single largest increases in the financial plan. So that's 2.74%, or $765,000 that we are increasing in that. And that includes both the RCMP contract and the administration of the RCMP services. The fire department is an increase of 1.56%. So this is largely due to the contracts that we have with the fire services. There is outstanding retro that is incurred or could incur based on some settlement of agreements. So We are awaiting that, and then once we have that number, that would be finalized. But at this time, this is projected. So that's 1.56% overall increase in the financial plan. We're actually seeing a decrease in the in building inspection of 0.11. This is reflecting the contracts that we had previously with the contract providers. And that was something that we did as we tried to achieve some of the gaps that we had in building inspection, but we have that contract in place and we continue to use that contractor. With this now dialed in, it's a little bit lower than the anticipated costs that we had previously. Contracts for services, this is really just our SPCA and our visitor center. So a minor increase there, 0.03% of the overall taxation increase. And within common engineering services, we did have $150,000 that was set within the financial plan for master planning, but council supported the Growing Communities Fund, which allowed us to remove that out of the master plan line item in common engineering services and speed up the work that we're going to do to set that long-term financial planning that we need to do for our capital assets. Also, the need to make sure that we have that in front of council for that long-term planning. So when we do bring forward our financial plan, the capital plan will be populated so that we would understand what we see coming up over the next 5 to 10 years as far as capital needs. And that better allows council to make decisions on what we need to provide as far as our reserve contributions. And we talked about ensuring that we start to populate those reserves. And we'll get to that a little bit later and what we need to start looking at. But it is about understanding where we need to spend the money for our renewal of our assets or new assets. Roads and streets, a 1.02% increase. And we have to understand that a lot of our employees work within these public works and storm and drainage. And we do see an increase. We've seen WCB premiums increase significantly. And that's not purely due to the experience of the city, that is a contributor, but the whole local government component of work-safe premiums has gone up significantly over the past few years. And we're seeing that pressure on the cost for the services that we deliver with our staff. So it's just another input, whether it's benefits, whether it's WorkSafe, whether it's increases to EI, or not EI, but CPP with the programs that are now in place. Those are just, as every employer sees, increased costs for our benefits on the wages that we pay. Once again, storm drainage, that had a slight decrease of 0.03%. And just so council knows that this will be on the website as far as the details. So we'll put this in the minutes as far as the details for the public to review. Other common services for public works. This is largely the increased training budget that we see within public works. And it's not that we've increased training per se, but it's increased because of how we allocate the cost of that training. I think if you look back at the financial plan, there was about $30,000 in the training budget, but we weren't allocating the wages that were being incurred. And those wages were going across the other line items, but it wasn't reflecting the cost of actually training our staff. So that was a change that was made over the last couple of years, but now it reflects the time, the work that is being done if we have any outside contractors to do the training, all within that line item. So it's reflective of the true cost of that training. Public transit, once again, is going up 0.15 or 41,000. So this is a contract that we have with BC Transit, and it just gets provided to us. We have some minor additional costs for UMO, but this is purely the cost of all the inputs that they have passed on to the city. Solid waste, we are returning our earth contribution to solid waste of about 150,000. Last year we did reduce that, but in order to get the financial plan to a lower amount last year, that was decreased. Staff are not recommending that. If we look back at fire did the same thing too. And we added back 250 of the 300 that we delayed on the ERF for 2023, but not fully complete back to that ERF contribution. So as we talk about the need to populate our reserves, that's an example that we seek to return back just to maintain that reserve contribution for the equipment for that program. That equipment replacement reserve fund has been in place since 1973. It's worked well as far as the need to renew our assets in the equipment side. I would like to see that for our asset management, understanding that we do have a lot of catch up to do as far as that reserve contribution. A few of these are decreases, and it's just reflective of what we're seeing for the cemetery maintenance. I think there was a push a couple of years ago to get some work done, and now we're seeing lower levels of allocation of costs there. So slight decrease of 0.08. Development services, we had quite an aggressive plan with the prior manager as far as trying to get some of our bylaws and work done. We're not fully staffed in development services. The anticipation that we would get a lot of the work that was planned done is not there, so it's being dialed back. But with that, we do see some grant funding from the communities that is offsetting some of the costs for the development work that needed to be undertaken this year. So that was about $140,000 that we've seen in the financial plan reduce from that department. Economic development, there's a small decrease there, 0.13. So Parks and Rec and Culture Administration, this is going up slightly, 0.06, and a lot of this is purely the increases seen as far as inflationary pressures. Parks and Rec facilities, we did work on this budget quite a bit, trying to make sure that all our facilities are being maintained and working in good working condition. This is purely an inflationary increase or an as needed increases. There's no special projects that are being incurred for the facilities, and this is everything from the multiplex to the aquatic center, the activity center. So it's all our Parks and Rec and Culture facilities. Recreational programs, we're seeing an increase of 0.95. There is some offsets with that. Fortunately, we do see, but as any work the city does or any local government, often it isn't full recovery. We're providing a service for the community that is there because there is no business case for it. So recreational programs, but I think we do seek to have recreational programs back to where we had it previously. We do have full complement of staff, and those staff are working towards some programming to fill the community's time as far and provide that opportunity to a lot of the families in the community. And Parks and Rec playgrounds, we've seen just the need to make sure that we maintain those parks and playgrounds. That's a 0.75 increase, and there is obviously some work that we've done in the capital side within the financial plan. There's more capital that we're bringing forward as far as fields, but these are still additions to the financial plan. A lot of this is once again inflationary too, as we see with the contracts that we have anticipated coming forward in 2024. With cultural services, we did have that as a resource that was added in December from council. So with that, it's 0.46, and other than that, it's the overall CPI and inflationary pressures that are going up with cultural services. We did have the Vancouver Island Regional Library discussion a few committee of the wholes ago, and that's a 0.57 or $159,000 year over year. With McLean's Mill, there's a slight decrease of 0.04. What I did include is the contribution that we do put into the capital, the 30,000, and the contract, and then the historical side of the McLean's Mill as far as what we are doing for McLean's Mill. So that's identified, but it is going down overall year over year by just over $12,000. What we're seeing too is with bank and interest fees, as inflation, CPI and rates go up, our payments that are made in advance. So we do have people that pay their taxes earlier. There's a higher interest rate that they receive for that deposit prior to the due date. So that is actually one of the surprising things that we've seen over the last year as far as increase in fees. So that's 0.15% overall. When we look at capital expenditures from taxation, so this is where we do not have enough funding to use our reserves and we're taking it from taxation. That's actually going up 3.16. So we are investing in our assets to extend the life and renew them. So that is a significant component of this financial plan. And that's 877,000. We've reduced the contingency over the past few years. This is bringing that contingency back up. We are budgeting much closer to our actuals, and there is more ownership of the financial plan with some of the tools that we have. So we are very tight when we do budget now, and more reflective and transparent of the cost that it does take to provide the service. We just have better tools now to track those things with technology, so, and automation. But contingency is going up 0.63 or $175,000 over last year. We do have future expenditures that I mentioned off the start of the presentation, that we do have these requests coming forward for multiplex boards or a roof or staff resources, but we just could not bring that forward in this year's financial plan. We tried to bring that forward in future years, but what we will do is we'll identify those items so council has that awareness that these are some of the exposures that we have in the future, or some of the resource requests that we might want to seek. Roofs, a lot of our buildings are, they are 50 or 60 years old, and we do need to replace these roofs, and they seem to be all having some issues, but we're trying to spread those out over a period of time to get them undertaken. The Western Vancouver Island Industrial Heritage Society, we don't have anything in the financial plan right now. If council does decide to do work, we would need to add that into it. So these are all items that are not in 2024, but we could include in future years, or if council seeks the addition in 2024, we can bring that forward. And there's many others, but we will bring that report to council when we meet at the next few meetings here, as far as what's not in the financial plan for 2024, but need to be included in future years. We did have a public input session, and it was interesting that we had about, I think, 35 people who participated, and we simply gave them $100 worth of Monopoly money and asked them where they would seek to put their dollars for taxes. And I was surprised at how thoughtful people were. Very few people just threw it all in one, or kind of said this was hard. So as far as council, the public, when they have to make the decisions, they would understand too. These are hard decisions to make, and so it was an interesting experience. And I think we might try to do this again at other public input sessions, just to gauge what it means to the public to seek the services from the city and help council make their decisions. So as you can see, there's some items here on here that are going to be quite different based on the next slide, because I did include a slide that includes what we actually kind of spend approximately on an area. So one thing that impressed me was that that there's a lot of infrastructure comments that people are seeking investment into our infrastructure, and even with the administrative services, I was surprised at that number. But economic development, to take a look at that number, and I'll just put a disclaimer that that booth was right next to mine, so might have had some influence on the number. And this is about where we do see. But I think the public is seeking economic development, obviously, because they know that improves the community, helps with the investment in the community. So, but I think the largest section that we do spend our tax dollars on is the protective services, so fire and police. So those are services that are important to the community, but are very a large portion of the overall budget. And there's obviously pressures that we see in engineering and public works that we need to address. And I think with the master plans, with the effort that we're taking, it will provide better information to make better decisions for council. So current levels of service, I think, I just wanted to highlight some of the larger items that we see in there. Capital is increasing the overall budget 3.16, contracts, and this was contracts across that we quantified approximately. That's probably accounting for 3.15% of the overall increase. RCMP, once again, 2.75, fire 1.56, and that includes the addition of IRF, as I mentioned. Adding that back, we took out $300,000 in 2023 to achieve the 8% in tax increase, but we're adding that back in and recommend that we don't go another year without making that contribution, because it limits the ability to replace our equipment moving forward. And then the library. So there's some of these large items here, and I think, if you add these up, it's well over 10% already. And when we look at the overall budget, it is 16.86% year over year increase. We are investing $1.8 million in capital. We don't have large reserves to support some of the capital infrastructure that we need to undertake. We're adding back that $400,000 in IRF contributions. That's about 50,000 less than we planned before we brought this budget forward. And the report that we brought forward for BC for comparable municipalities in BC, and we were the second lowest for taxes on and total property charges in that $15,000 to $40,000 component. That said, if all else remains the same, and did the calculation of the increase that we would see approximately, depending on the utility rates that we seek, so I added that into the calculation, we would move from second lowest to sixth lowest if all those other communities did not raise their fees at all. And I know that won't be the case, but that's just an example of where we sit. So I think we're probably going to be remaining within that second to sixth position on the communities of around 20 that we had, 17 or 20, I forget the number I had in that graph, but we're still on the lower end, and I know that that's not something that resonates with some people, because it is an increase year over year, and everyone's facing the increases across everything that they do. So obviously staff brought this forward, understanding that it is a large number, the 16.86%, but we provide council with a budget that remains the same service level delivery, the importance of investing in the community as far as where we need to be, and then understanding that maybe we've been a little bit low as far as tax increases, but as we seek more information with our master plans, with the work that we're doing, we anticipate that that will give us better information to make the decisions. So that's kind of where we have it right now. We'll have the details at the regular council meeting, so that will be on the agenda for the end of this week. But yeah, I know there's obviously some discussion that the committee and council want to have on this, and staff are eager to provide the opportunity to council to make comment and move forward on this. So.
Thank you, Andrew. Oh, you're.
No, and this is the graph that I just mentioned, so I forgot it was the very end, but yeah, there we go. So
There you go. I jumped the gun a little bit there. Thank you so much. That's a lot of information to take in, so we'll have to really ponder this. Now, you did mention that you're looking at leases, but I think we also have to look at other ways to generate revenue, such as looking over our user fees, our DCC fees, look at all of our lease agreements. So we have a lot of agreements that are extremely low and way too low. We need to start charging market pricing. So we need to revisit that. And also make sure that we're doing cost recoveries for things like water and sewer hookups. And when a new developer comes in, making sure that they pay for those water and sewer hookups, and they haven't been paying previously. And I know this is going to be a very contentious subject, but we also have to do something about making sure that all residents of the Alberni Valley pay properly for our services that they use. So that would mean increasing cost for people that live in the regional district use our recreational services. So I think that's something we need to start considering and working towards as well. Any questions or comments? Councillor Solda.
Just a couple of questions. The 16.86 percent, is that for in the 5 years or is that just for this coming year? Like, I wasn't sure, wasn't clear on that.
Madam Chair, through to Councillor Solda. So it is for 2024. That's the increase. That's the increase.
Well, we know we're going to chip away at that, right? But just another question too is regarding, I have some concerns on the contingency funds because I know they're right down, and I'm surprised on the 0.63% increase on that. So I'll be interested to see more and hear more about that. And we have some buildings, like as an example, Roland Art Center, will that be in the budget? Because now it's back to us, right? And how is that going to be is that with Parks and Rec? And there's some playgrounds that are aging, or we need some in a couple of areas that we've been waiting for the master plan from the parks. So I'm just curious to know if that will be in the 5-year plan, or are we going to wait for the all the reports to come back? And economic development, I'm really surprised that we have a decrease on that, and I'm kind of curious to know why, and because it's going to be very important to us, and especially in the community. And then some of the like when I look at the graphs and that, and I see like where the people, although it was only 35 people, but people have a lot of concerns about our aging infrastructure, our roads and streets and stuff like that. So I'm really big on promoting and getting that fixed up. And like we heard from the member of the public today speaking about Third Avenue, we got some areas, not just Third Avenue, but some areas in this community that need some really overhaul cleanup and something done. And so I have concerns on that because where is that going to be located at? And I think at the moment I'll stop there, but I'm sure when I go through all this, there'll be more on Monday.
Did you get all that, Andrew?
That's a perfect segue, Madam Chair, to the question and answer. So we will, all the questions that council asks, all the questions that the public will ask, we'll make sure that we track those and then follow up if we can't answer on the spot. And I think with this one, I don't know if there's specific questions that you want to look at right now, but if you could provide those details as far as what you are seeking exactly, we could provide that in the question and answer as far as let's just take the example of our streets. Like that's where we need to put money away in our reserves. If we want to renew these assets, we need to have that in there. We also need to make sure that if it is the parks plan is completed and we understand what we need in different areas with that public input, and then seek that that reserve to have some contributions to renew or replace new parks in if that is the desire of council and the community. So I think we have some work to do before we start populating with the master plans. But as far as putting money aside, I think we brought forward the reserve report and what we need to seek as far as moving forward. Even though we haven't completed the master plans, we know there's a gap. We know there's a gap with our infrastructure, so we need to start populating some reserves to do the work in the future because it will be continuous and ongoing.
Go ahead, Councillor Solda.
So I just looked at some other notes on my pages here. One was the Harbor Key, because I know I have talked and asked about the cleanup of Harbor Key because there's things that need to be done down there. And that was another thing because the tourists are starting to come back and that needs a really good cleanup. And I know we have the SOMAS and we're trying to tie everything in, but that needs to be done. And I remember the CAO saying it is going to happen. Something's going to happen down there. And maybe through the chair, he can elaborate. And one more thing, somebody's asked me about APD and I made a note of it to ask, do they still pay taxes since they're closed? And do they pay it on just the lands if they're not using the building? I know the assessment changes. So I'm curious to make sure that's in the, how that's going to affect us, or is it going to affect us? But so those are some of the other questions, and I have a whole bunch of notes, but I might have to wait because there's other people. Thank you.
I believe the APT will still pay taxes, correct, Andrew?
Madam Chair, that is correct. So they still are being taxed in the major industry, and those taxes are still being set based on what council would set in the tax bylaw that we bring forward. So what we do see is BC assessment assesses those properties based on their current use and condition, and it's legislated actually through the major industry. So it's very very prescriptive as far as how they are taxed, and they are a large taxpayer in the city of Port Alberni. So it is obviously something that we are mindful of.
Theo?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the Harbor Key, I did ask for it to be provided cost estimates in the 5-year financial plan. So as we come forward with that, you should see some earmarked improvements. It's not in this year coming. And the reason why is because of the current situation we're in. We were looking for either next year or the year after. I can't remember where it was put in, but you will see it highlighted in the 5-year capital plan, along with other projects that we've put off. I know that the Bulldogs were really advocating for us to bring forward the rink boards this year, where they do experience some issues with the boards. However, the life expectancy for us was in the next 3 years. So we moved it to next year, understanding the tax pressures for this year. So again, we're trying to get the most useful life out of all of our assets, but some of them are in disrepair and are coming forward. And with not having the proper reserves to fund them, then it ends up being a capital expenditure, which then increases the taxes in the year that we have to do it.
So Solda?
I was kidding. I have one question to ask to follow up on that. Sorry. So back to the Harbor Key, does that mean anything like general maintenance, like power washing, the cover, the walkway path, or anything like that won't be done, or that'll be just general maintenance?
Through the chair, general maintenance will continue, and we'll be focused on the we can do that. What I was talking about is some people would like the replacement of the roofs, the glass panels or plexiglass panels. I'm not sure what they were, but they're discolored now, where we've had some complaints on those, and also some of the timbers are starting to show wear and have to be replaced in the next few years. So there is quite a bit, and I don't believe we have any money stocked away for those items at this time. So it is a capital request, and will be a decision of council at that time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Donna, would you like a motion when I suggested that staff review the charges and DSS fees, RDCC fees? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we ask staff to review all user fees and ensuring that charges are cost recovery, review DCC fees, and work towards ensuring that all residents of the Alberta Valley pay properly. So looking at ways to increase user fees for the regional district. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? None opposed, motion carried. Moving on. Question period. This is an opportunity. Sorry.
If we're talking about the same thing, I think we just need a motion that the committee of the whole receive the report, and I will move that the committee of the whole receive the report overview of 2024 to 2028 financial plan process dated January 31st, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Dame. Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll move on to question period, an opportunity for the public to ask questions of council. For those participating electronically, please use the raise your hand feature and you will be called upon to speak in the order of which it appears. Any questions from the public? Come on up, Neil.
Too many questions after this report, so I'm going to keep it simple. It's not my, takes a while for me to understand some of these things. On the contingency funds, what, just approximately, what percentage is that going to cost us to bring the contingencies back to a situation, a position rather, that we would like to see them going? The reason I'm
Go ahead,
asking
Andrew.
that too is if I'm on the right track, is I've heard for in the past that we'll be taking so much out of a contingency fund in order to complete a project. And I also hear quite often that, oh, it's okay, it won't affect our taxes. I never did believe any of that, because now it is affecting our taxes at some degree. So I'm just like some clarification as to what percentage that will be. And are we not, answer, maybe you can get the answer to my question first, if you don't mind.
So, Madam Chair, to the member of the public, so what we do have this year is an increase in the amount that we had in the contingency, and this is operational contingency, so it's not a reserve per se, but we normally have that contingency at around $200,000 every year. Last year we reduced it to $100,000. This year it's set at 275. So that has an impact of 0.63 on the overall taxation increase, or $175,000.
Isn't that an indication that when we're starting a project that we maybe should not be starting those projects? When we withdraw so much out of our contingencies that we have to now go ahead and make it a tax issue. When, if I got the numbers right, if we're looking, what's the percentage that they're going to have this year just to, for taxes increase? The proposed one, I know it may drop by 1 or 2%.
With 16.86%.
16 is what I thought it was. And that's mind blowing to me as far as I'm concerned. That's it. Well, my taxes will go up by about $500. And like so many people, I'm on a pension. I have 3 pensions, and there goes my increases from cost of livings on my pensions. It's getting very hard for people. So if it's 16% this year, what would you say a guesstimate? It's not fair to ask for guesstimates. I would say it's going to be pretty close to that in the next few years, 16%. 14%.
I think Andrew is going to be bringing over the 5-year financial budget at a future meeting, so perhaps we can wait and look at it at that time. This
So
is just the initial presentation for this year.
well, I know, but it's still a concern for someone to think. I would expect that it will be above 10% for the next, every year for the next 5 years, considering the number of things that we need doing. And my one last comment, I mean, it's night when I look at what we're doing from the key to key. I used to think it was a walkway across the ocean or the inlet, and how couldn't get over having to cross roads. When I see the amount of work that's going into the park there up to the railway bridge, was that really necessary at this time? It is going to be nice. But when we're looking at a 16% increase in taxes, was that necessary right now? Did it have to go all that way?
That was grant funding, Neil.
Partly grant funding or all grant funding. We just asked for another 1 point something million to finish it off, didn't we?
I believe it was all grant funding, was it not, CEO?
Through the chair, I believe it was mostly grant funded. I wouldn't, I can ask the Director of Finance to clarify that, but I believe we used 2 different grant funds.
So we did ask for another 1 point, was that How,
That was
what
coming
did that
from our-
come into the picture? And this,
That was coming from our community building fund that received last year from the provincial government. So that was not coming from taxation.
well, that's what I've heard all the time. That contingency fund withdrawal won't affect our taxes. Now look at us anyway. I'm asking these questions for information because there's a lot I don't understand. I don't mind saying that. But I'm really concerned about the percentages. I say it'll cost me about a $500 increase in my taxes.
CEO,
Yeah, through the chair, just on the operational contingency funds, that comes with using new softwares. What has happened is we actually allocate for pretty close to there's not much contingency built into the budget. So the contingency funds, if there was something to happen operationally, that's what it would cover. It's not for capital projects or starting a project. That contingency fund, the reserves that we were talking about are different and are for different line items. But in general, I think that's if that helps further. I just wanted to add that comment.
It all helps. It's not my, it's a little bit confusing, some of this for me. So but I don't mind asking questions if I haven't got it right. So, but at 16% is something, something isn't right. I mean, we're in a community that needs to, we want to make it more appealing to people. But the people that are in here are getting to a point now, especially elderly people, well, we can't afford to live here. Anyway, hopefully we can get it down by.
just remember, this
15%.
is just the first presentation. It's not the final budget. So keep that in mind.
I'm keeping that in mind, and
Yeah,
I'm just
great.
putting forward my concerns as a person that lives here, and my taxes are. And when you include that with your insurance and everything else and all that, right off your various incomes, your old age and all that, you're looking at 400, 500 right off. Well, somewhere I'm just atop the mind, $400 at least a month to just sustain your taxes and your insurance and all that stuff, and maintain and keeping your house looking nice for the community. It's getting pretty hard for a lot of people. Anyway, thanks for listening. And
Thank you for your concerns, Neil. I appreciate it. Any other questions from the public? Come on up, Chris.
Hi, Council. Chris Alamany, 385 6th Avenue. Lots of questions. But I recognize it's the first look at the financial plan. It's always you always catch your breath in your throat a little bit when you see that first number. So I get it. But 16% is big, is really big. So a couple questions. Police services. Is that just officers? Is it personnel? Is it operations? Is it increases due to negotiated pay increase? Can you explain that a little bit?
We had a huge pay increase that we have no choice in paying.
Okay. So it is that, so it's going fully into pay increase?
Is that fully pay increase, Andrew?
Madam Chair, so out of the 2.74% of the overall increase, that's the component that's out of the 16.86%. That is 2.0%, I believe, just for the RCMP contract. The rest is the administration of police services. So there is a contingent of municipal staff that operate the detachment. But the largest component of that is that 2.01% of the overall increase for the taxation is purely from the RCMP contract.
Okay, yeah, that explains it. Because I mean, it would be different if we were looking at, whether or not, as we've had many debates in the past about, increasing the number of officers and that sort of thing. So if it's something that's negotiated and we can't have any, we don't have any other option. So
Just so you know,
Okay,
Chris, I
yeah.
don't know if you watched the last meeting online, but we are taking resolution to UBCM to look at the whole policing model because Andrew did bring forward that each household in Port Alberni pays about $500 compared to people that live in the original district that pay $60 to $80 per household. So we need to even that out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Next up, could you explain a little bit the carbon offset increase just to, because I know that that program has changed a little bit as far as whether we do a project that reduces our carbon emissions, we get some money back. Can you explain that a little bit?
Go ahead, Andrew.
That's a good question, Madam Chair. So with the ceasing of the CARET program, the previous program that the city was under, where we signed on, the new government started the local government climate action plan. So that was a pure allocation that I think tripled the amount of our carbon funding from the province from previous amounts. But we don't have that commitment to purchase carbon credits anymore, but we make that contribution. So the contribution last year was, I think the previous year was dropped because our carbon footprint dropped. So when we're under the CARET program, our amount that we previously budgeted was lower, but now this is increasing it back to support the contributions to that reserve to do some more carbon incentive projects. So yeah, we do have some recommendations to council as far as how to use that funding this past year. We didn't use our first year allotment, so we have the first 150,000 and then this year's 150,000 in the reserve, plus our leftover reserve funds from the CARET program that we'll utilize this upcoming year for some carbon initiative projects.
So does it still operate sort of as a reserve fund then?
Madam Chair, so yes, it does operate as like we take the contributions that we receive and we put that into that fund and track it separately.
Okay. Just on the reserve funds, just a comment about the ERF, the equipment replacement fund. That's really concerning that it was drawn down so much. So I do really support bringing that back up to the level that it needs to be in order to replace all of the equipment that we have in the city. It's really, really important. I think that's the last sort of my financial stuff. The only other one, just thinking about the broom busters, if that's okay, sort of a general question. Has the city considered talking to at UBCM or wherever, talking to the Ministry of Transport, the ministry in charge of BC Hydro, about taking responsibility of their lands? I mean, all you have to do is drive down the highway and you can see where the broom comes through, and that's no one's responsibility but the Ministry of Transportation, and they have never taken responsibility for that invasive species on their land. So I'd really like to see council push more, and I know there was a resolution to the UBCM, but continue pushing and ask the ministers directly to take responsibility for that.
I think that's a great idea, Chris. Thank you so much. And I'll pass it on to Mayor Minions and we'll make sure that we do that in the fall. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions? Come on up, Joseph. He beat you again, Neil.
Thank you again. And these were some questions and comments that I had from the previous, but decided to postpone it until this one. And so I hope I've got a couple things here. One came up tonight that was of interest to me, which was a learning lesson for me. During the agenda tonight, we went from delegation D, which is item D, and then we went down to item H, new business. And I went, okay, I think when I was young, my mother never satisfied the need for the why. So I have too many questions. I don't think she paid enough attention, maybe. Anyhow, so the thing that came up, unfinished business, staff reports and correspondence. So I asked someone at the back of the room, I think we've missed some things. And they said, well, if there's nothing on any of those, there's no need to bring them up or even mention them. I, oh, okay, that's cool. Then the question pops in my head, why not? Why aren't there some staff reports? And why isn't there some correspondence? Again, staff report is the opportunity, I think, for staff to report on things they've been out in the community. And I've listened in the past to some of those, appreciate them. And then the correspondence, we just hear somebody wrote something, but we don't actually see what the correspondence was. But again, the public, why aren't they writing in, or perhaps just nothing at this time? So the staff report one, I'd love to hear from. I know at the again, at the meeting at Charles Landing from the transition town, there was a number of council members there and some staff members. And I don't know if that's something that would be reported on, because there's a number of you that did attend. And I would love to hear your feedback on what you heard that evening. So if that's possible, I would love to hear from one of the council members on a staff. Would that be considered a staff report item if they did attend and they had a comment on it? Would that be included in that?
That would be under council reports.
Council report.
Yeah,
Thank you,
for-
thank you, thank you.
yes.
Oh, staff reports. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
And
read.
under correspondence, we do have correspondence at our regular council meetings, and they do get
Right.
copies of correspondence, or it is included in the
Yep,
agenda.
Good. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. That just came up tonight. I was just curious. So it was one of those curious questions. So the question I have, a couple of them, is the Roger Creek or the Connector Trail. I believe that was mentioned earlier, is going across, ending at Roger Creek there, or at Roger Street. Looks like that the plan is for that to cross Roger Street and connect on the other side of the tracks and carry on down to Stamp Avenue and then cross Stamp Avenue. Am I correct at that?
Theo?
Through the chair, it doesn't, it crosses at the lights into, into the area. So there is a small section of the more narrow path to use to get down along the treed front until you cut back onto the railway area.
Okay.
Now we're still working as staff after we got direction from council on securing where the trail will be located on that rail corridor. And if there is any changes to that, then we'll bring it back to council. So I am working with Island Corridor. I have a meeting coming up with them, and we're also working on a right of way with Catalyst Paper for a small section. So once those are done, if there's any changes to that plan, we will come back to council.
Okay, thank you. So I take it, it sounds like then Roger Creek or Roger Road, you're not going to go across there. It's going to go down to the light, correct?
Through the chair, sorry, I'm talking two different roads, I guess.
Yeah.
At Rogers Street, right by Dolan's, it does cross there, and it would continue behind the Barclay, following straight through to the next crossing by in front of Catalyst. It would go down to the lights at that, I believe, at Redford, and then across.
Thank you. Yeah, good. So that's just to clarify. I did try and go on the website to see what the map of it was, and I had a little trouble finding it again. So that Roger Creek, Roger Street crossing, that's of a concern. I don't know if they're planning on putting up a light or just a crosswalk. If it's a planned use trail, it's going to be busy. Again, coming off of Gertrude, off of Stamp, there's kind of a merge there. It's a heavy traffic area, and to have a crossing that close, because there's two lanes, I think one heading from south to north, and then people coming south that would go up Roger. Very busy, so there's a concern there for safety. Again, if you're going to be crossing right there, I think there's a merge kind of thing, and then it's very heavy. So just to put up a crosswalk, probably not great. A light, you're going to affect the traffic that uses that route a lot. So not a great solution. I don't think you're going to build an overpass for pedestrians. That would be a big cost. Maybe you could put down the old train track things and drop them down so people stop. I don't know, just a concern. And the same on Stamp, that's going to be a concern also, how you're going to effectively make that safe. And that could be a very costly thing in that whole thing. So that's one of the questions I have on that, just whether it's crossing and how that would be looked at for safety. Another question, mass demolition, there's a lot of debris down there that some of it's being reused, repurposed. There's a lot that's not. Is that being burnt by chance, some of that debris?
To date, just so you know, 90 to 95% of the demolition that has occurred at SOMAS has either been resold or repurposed for something else. So I think that's a pretty good number.
It is,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of debris down there that's just, it's basically kindling, or you could say it's pretty broken up, so it's not really usable other than, and it looks like, from what I can see on the piles down at APD, which I think uses that to burn, a lot of what looks like paint contained with
Through the chair, I'm not sure if they're using it as hog fuel. They have parameters that they have to meet to do it. So some of the wood is being chipped and goes to that location. There is others that's being composted and used for other purposes. So again, it's a mixture, but a lot of the woody debris that even if it has paint on it can be reused in some manner. And we're taking every effort to do that.
Good. And I think my concern, if things are being burnt with paint on it, I know you're not allowed to take and take your wood products to some of the places here. If it has paint on it, they won't accept it. And part of the reason is the contamination that's involved there. Old building, probably lead paint, but I'm again, just to be aware of what's going on down there with the you know, getting rid of the debris that can't be recycled or reused. So that's about it, just those questions. So thank you for answering that. I just wondered, because the pile looks like it's full of all kinds of things other than the normal fuel that's usually burnt down there. And the other thing, just a comment, I mentioned earlier about the job that you guys do, and thank you. And I heard earlier in there, there's a bit of a budget for a professional day, and I'm glad to hear that. You all come from varied backgrounds with different experience and expertise, and it's nice to see it come together. But with that, you know, Pro D days at high school, they have them all the time, so they better serve the children, they better serve. And it sounds like there are professional days for council and staff. So it sounds like for council members, there is that too. And I don't, there's a cost there, but yeah, so I was just curious how that looks, because I know all of us probably we're our own biggest critics, and we always wonder if we're doing good enough. So just for you guys to get the support that you need in doing the job you do. So thank you again.
Thank you, Joseph. Did you have a comment, Councillor Mealy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did, just going back to the safety of the pedestrians. So at the last Advisory Traffic Commission, first one of this year, I did bring forward Pemberton and Gertrude as, and the reason why I do that is when I go to work in the morning, you see a whole line of people trying to turn left to go up to the high school. And so if it's a full signalization, it's going to be a problem. So we will be discussing that. So I'll make sure that that you're known. April 17th, if you want to come to the next meeting. Thanks.
Any other questions? Chris, come on up.
Sorry for coming back. But just I wanted to just comment from personal experience, riding in Nanaimo on some of their bike lanes and walking paths and stuff in the ENN trail. There's an excellent example of a very safe crossing across Mostar, the road that goes up to Rutherford Mall, right at the ENN railway there. It's very, very good. They narrowed it. It's still 4 lanes. It's still very busy, but it's very safe. It's controlled by by whoever's crossing. I think it would be a really good option for Roger Street. The other comment on that, just because I live in that general area, please, oh please, put the path on the east side of the railway so that it's accessible to all of those neighborhoods all the way down towards Redford, because otherwise you have to cross the tracks. Just a thought.
See you.
Through the chair, we'll be talking with Island Corridor at the end of the day. It is their tracks, and I'm not sure which one is the main line. I'd have to talk with them. So if it's the main line and there is rail, then that will determine which side it can be on.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any final questions before we adjourn? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So move, Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. All in favor? None opposed, motion carried. Thank you, everyone.